I'm Eric Parker. This morning on CT21, Connecticut gas prices are averaging over $3.50 a gallon right now. A year ago, the price was $2.13 a gallon. So why the big increase? And is there any hope those prices will retreat anytime soon? Michael J. Fox, Executive Director of the Gasoline and Automotive Service Dealers Association, is offering his expert input. And food prices, they're up too. And in some places, shelves for certain items are bare. So what's going on in our supermarkets? Wayne Pesch of the Connecticut Food Association is sharing some important insight. And honoring fallen veterans through Wreaths Across America. Renee Danino and Connecticut's Commissioner of Veterans Affairs are here talking about how you can help this patriotic effort happening once again this holiday season. It's all ahead this Sunday, November 14th. CT21 starts right now.
From Channel 3, this is Connecticut's most watched current affairs program, CT21, with Eric Parker, sponsored by Hartford Healthcare.
Good morning. We had the numbers for you in the open. At last check, the average price for a gallon of gas in Connecticut was $3.54. Last year at this time, the price was $2.13 a gallon. That is, of course, quite a jump. So who or what is to blame for the increase? And will we see those prices come down anytime soon? Joining us to offer some insight on what exactly is going on is Michael J. Fox. He's the Executive Director of the Gasoline and Automotive Service Dealers Association. Michael, thank you for being with us. So I guess the question is as broad as they come. What the heck's happening?
Well, we have the issue of what the current administration in Washington has done by executive order with stopping the Keystone XL pipeline and preventing further drilling on federal lands. And that has just taken us from total energy independence to now back to being dependent on Mideast oil. And we haven't learned our lesson from the past. When we depend on Mideast oil, this is exactly what happens. They hold us hostage and prices go through the roof. And unfortunately, I think you're going to see $4 and $5 a gallon gasoline before it gets better.
All right, so let's break down. You had a lot of stuff there. Anecdotally, I've heard people say, I'm sure a lot of our viewers have heard people complaining about the high gas prices and saying off the cuff, thanks, Joe Biden, the gas prices are up. But you're saying as an expert, it actually is the actions of the president that have led to this.
Absolutely. And again, I'm not Democrat or Republican. I call out the problem. Whenever you issue an executive order that takes us from total energy independence, meaning we actually produced more crude oil here in the United States than we were using, so we were able to ship it overseas and sell it at higher prices. But now, because of what the current administration has done, we are no longer energy independent. It's going to affect gasoline prices. It's going to affect natural gas prices, home heating oil. And as we all know, energy prices raise the price of everything else.
Now, in the past, when this would happen, the producers of gasoline, the refineries, would just ramp up production here in the U.S. Have we seen that happen, or is that not happening as it did in the past?
Yes, people need to understand, and I'm not one who backs the major oil companies a lot. We fight them every day. But the problem that you have is a refinery runs at its most efficient when it's operating somewhere between 95 and 100% of capacity. It actually costs more money to run down the refinery capacity to less than 100%. So the issue is one of getting cheap crude oil to those refineries so they can operate at 100%. Now, just think logically. If the Keystone XL pipeline was allowed to be completed and a refinery needed 100,000 barrels of crude, which is a very small order, it would go in the pipeline at 8 o'clock in the morning in Canada and come out at the refinery at 8:01. Now we have to wait for a very large crude cargo carrier to come all the way from the Middle East, come all the way across to the United States, unload, and then go to the refinery. So you can see how that really plays havoc with the inventory levels and what happens at a refinery and how it actually operates.
So if the oil producers aren't able to do it because of the reasons you just mentioned, how about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve? The president could release that. We've seen it in the past after hurricanes and in energy crises. Is that something that should be considered by the Biden administration?
Absolutely not. When you look at the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, depending on how much they release per day, you're looking at 36 to 165 days total. And if they don't fix the core problem, you just go out 36 or 165 days and we're right back to normal. But more importantly, our enemies would see we don't have anything left in our Strategic Petroleum Reserve. because in America, we're an open book. You can type into Google and find out exactly how much product is in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And our enemies would know that information almost immediately. So that, to me, is the most ridiculous thing I've heard proposed out of Washington. And in the last year, we've heard a lot of crazy things.
All right, so we now know the why of what's happening, but let's look ahead. I mean, the numbers we gave at the opening of this segment, if you have a not even that big car with a 15-gallon tank, you're talking upwards of $20 difference from a year ago to today when you go and fill up that tank from empty to full. So as we move forward, we get into the holiday travel season, we get into early 22. What can we expect, Michael?
Well, that's why I say I think we're going to quickly get to $4 and somewhere between $4 and $5, because demand is going to go up as it always does over the holiday season. And yes, we feel for our customers because we hear it every day when they fill up their car. Your local gasoline retailer who gets probably a load of fuel every day or every other day, he's seen increases of $10,000 to $15,000 to $20,000 per load. We have to have that money available when the truck arrives or the truck just leaves. It doesn't drop the product. So if you talk about a cash crunch, we feel it as much, if not more, than the consumer.
How much does COVID play into all this, Michael? Because I know we saw such a big drop-off in demand during the lockdowns at the early days of COVID. We've seen a lot of the economy and the industries bounce back. Is that a factor in this, that the demand is back up?
Certainly what we saw during COVID was the inventory levels of both refined gasoline and crude oil were climbing. And now those inventory levels have dropped dramatically, and that's why prices are going up. And that was due to demand. And we're back not to normal demand, but almost normal demand. But the important thing it was a gradual growth. It wasn't overnight like a storm where we have a major storm coming in. And so everybody is filling up their car where they normally would fill it up 2 or 3 days later. They were filling up, say, on Monday instead of Thursday. So it was normal growth. And if the president did not enact that executive order, we wouldn't have this issue. Listen, I challenge President Biden. It's real simple. If you don't believe me, redact your executive order word for word. It'll take 30 to 90 days. Gas prices will come down. I'm telling you, that's the facts.
Well, we will obviously have to wait and see what the president does with that. But in the short term, do you have any advice for people? Just, Joe Driver, who's going to go fill up his tank. Is there a better day, a better time, some news you should watch for? Anything people can do to save a couple bucks, Michael?
Well, the consumer has the ultimate test. They can go to any service station they want, wherever prices are the cheapest. They're savvy shoppers, and that's what they do. So obviously, depending on when someone gets product, for us, I watch prices every single day. Prices went up about 3.5 cents on the wholesale level today. They've continued to climb every single day, so we see it in advance. But that increase doesn't get passed on to the consumer till that delivery actually lands and comes. So by shopping around, and my members hate when I say that, but shop around for the best prices. We certainly don't have real tiny signs where you can't see what our prices are.
That's right. Look for those cheap prices and grab them while you can. Michael J. Fox, the Executive Director of the Gasoline and Automotive Service Dealers Association. Thanks for being with us here on CT21.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to move on now from high gas prices to rising prices at the grocery store. What can we expect in terms of how much more we'll be spending when we shop, and what kinds of items might just be a little hard to find? That's coming up right after this break. Stay with us.